Hey guys, this is Bostonl1 here, back after a long hiatus with FPL. I've been really looking forward to doing these videos again. It's been, well, a whole year since I did the last series. But it's back again with a new season, and this year I'm really looking forward to once again uploading recaps and such as that, and other FPL content. But today I got a special guest with me. Got PK. Say hi, PK.
Hello.
This is fake PK, by the way, not the actual PK. As you probably can already tell by the voice. But anyway, today I'm essentially going to do something a little different. I'm going to kind of look at the season because the draft happened like what, 4 days ago?
Yeah,
it was Sunday. Today's
earlier
Tuesday.
this past weekend.
Yeah, so wasn't that long ago. But I want to kind of look through the teams, kind of give our thoughts on them, do a little power rankings, such as that. So with that being said, let's go and look at the first team. We got Savage and the Stonehenge. That's hard to say. The Stonehenge Stonejurners. They.
5 times fast.
I don't want to say that 5 times fast. I'm not gonna try. This team is captained by Savage, of course. His team is Lugia, Resh, Daniel, OP Jellyessent, Flapjack Hero. Jesus, Halogen, and Ollie. It's been so long since I tried talking on video, man. It's so hard. Anyway, looking at this team, I can't remember the draft price off the top of my head. I think Lugia went for like 16. OP went for.
I want to say Lugia went for 20, like low 20s.
OP Jellyessent actually one of the highest priced draft picks in the entire league.
31,000 points.
I think he may have been the highest. Suave was almost
he was
the
highest in this draft for sure.
Yeah, Suave was going to be next highest, but I AJ'd lagged too hard. Anyway, so looking at this team, I like the. I'm also going to flip over to the matchups so I can remember what positions they're playing against this team right here. I do like Lugia a lot. I actually wanted to draft Lugia like really bad, but I was distracted at the moment.
I think the best thing about having Lugia on this team is Lugia is really good at Little Cup and VGC, which are 2 tiers that not a lot of people in this tournament play.
Yeah, he can definitely help Red.
Especially not at the level that Lugia is going to be playing. So I think that automatically gives the Stonejurners a really good presence in those 2 tiers.
Mm-hmm. And I think he can just pretty much ghost anybody. He knows most of Pokemon pretty well, so he's probably going to be one of the better VGC spots in this entire thing just because he does like that tier, and because he can help out an LC.
And I don't know how much scouting Savage did prior to the draft, but picking up Lugia for the high teens, low 20s that he would have got Lugia for is such a good pick.
Yeah, Lugia was.
Someone who doesn't know a lot of the people in this draft.
Yeah, Lugia, because he's pretty much the random. Savage did not even talk much in Joey Court, so he was kind of a lurker, I guess. I don't know how much he knows about anybody, but he drafted, I think, pretty decently well for himself.
Yeah, for not knowing people, he actually got some really good players. I think Halogen, having helped them with some of the last FPL building and seeing that, I think Halogen's a really consistent, solid player.
He's a good administrator guy, too.
Yep, I'm interested to see how Halogen does in this format, but at least in the Mondraft format, Halogen is really solid, really consistent, and really well crafted.
Yeah, I really like Halogen. I kind of wanted to draft myself as well as Lugia. Lugia, I think, went for a great price for him. OP Jellyessent as the high. I don't think he's worth what he was purchased for, but he does play Pokemon quite a bit. If you don't know, he has a YouTube channel himself.
And as much as we want to make jokes about the YouTube clout and him going for such a good price, I think he does have a really solid presence in tiers. I think there'll be a lot of games that he plays close at the very least.
Yeah, and I don't think he's not going to go like 0-5 or 0-6 or 0-7. He's gonna win enough games to make him worth the pick, I think.
So I think despite him maybe going a little high, that's still someone that's going to give Savage the opportunity to win whatever game that he's in during that week.
Mm-hmm.
I assume he'll probably be playing mostly OU or UU, based on what I've seen of him.
Yeah, I can see that. He played OU most of last FPL.
Yeah, I would assume almost exclusively an OU player, especially because one of the big weaknesses on this team when I look at it is I'm not sure who their OU players are entirely.
Mm-hmm.
For one, I've never seen Savage play.
No,
so I don't know if Savage is primarily an OU player, low tier player, where he'll be. But I think this team's biggest thing is if they can get a solid OU rotation in, they should also be able to do really well in the VGC and Little Cup tiers.
I agree with that. So they're spearheaded by those two random tiers, I think, just because of Lugia. OP's gonna be good, pretty decent in OU. For the others, like, okay, Resh, he did not have the greatest FPL. He did pick it up in the end and actually helped his team make it to finals on that drop dead by Draco's. So he did pretty decent there, but like the rest of the picks, Daniel didn't play Mondra.
Being a very close person to Resh and having played a lot of Mondraft with Resh, is he sometimes can fall a little into trying to be really innovative, and that's not always a bad thing. But I think there are sometimes times where it's good to be able to know really standard sets and be able to use really standard sets at a high level, especially in a tournament like this.
Yeah, I mean, last FPL, he pretty much exclusively ran Linoon for the first 5 weeks of the season. And then after that, he just dropped it completely and just ran Rain for the rest of the time, which was kind of funny. But I think Resh is okay. He's going to get some games, depending on how serious he takes it. But then for the other ones, I don't know much about Ollie, Flapjack, or, of course, Savage himself. Daniel, I've seen him around. I don't know much Monty plays.
Yeah, I've seen Daniel on a lot of teams before. His team seemed to perform well. I'm just not sure how much of that is really...
I mean, I think he was on a team that won the draft.
Yeah, he was on the FPL championship team last year in the Mondraft.
The drafting. So, Ollie, I think I looked at him to him a little bit. I didn't see him as much of a good player. I didn't see him as a high pick player. So, but you know, so you still get your roster out. Maybe he'll surprise us because sometimes
randoms pop up every year. Honestly, in these, a few years ago, back in 2017, I was a random pick for SCB's Team Beer team, and while that team didn't do too well, I'm still here 2 years later. So,
like same, I was the same season. I was on a base lords. I was an unknown, went 4-2. So, and also like another thing is like Coolio. Coolio was on another team this year as well. Coolio, I was like really hard on him when I was like trying to find him because I looked him up on Showdown. He had like a GXE of 17 and UU. I'm like, oh no. But then he had like a 3-3 season last year for FPL, and then he also was on the team that also won the FPL draft league. So like, sometimes these people that I don't know much about and don't think too highly of can surprise us.
And actually, on this next team we're going to talk about, there is one of those players that just recently popped up.
Most definitely. So
I am very interested to see how he does, being as I am also a member on this team.
Well, let's go and segue over there. So the next team we're talking about is the Team Death Pirate Soul. I don't even know what kind of name that is, but
it's the most edgy name in the
it
draft.
Is so edgy.
And Joshua's the coach. It's wild.
Josha? Does it mean Siru? You don't know your own captain? Hello?
No. Joshua is the coach in this, but Siru has the most edgy name.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But Siru's kind of a joke. She's a RPer, I guess. He role plays on normal. So anyway, we got Siru here as the captain of this team with his co-cap SCB LOL, Shieldpoke, Famios, Chris for 5, PK, Spatula, and Pimvoice. PK being the guy I'm talking to right now. So
that's me. So my first thing when I look at this team, honestly, is just looking at Siru as a coach and knowing Siru as potentially the most well-rounded player in this draft all around.
Yeah,
He's a great builder, great ghoster, great battler, and I think he is kind of the foundation for a team that already has a lot of solid players on it.
Yeah, if anybody has followed my FPL videos or FPL last season, most of you know that Cyrus is a huge presence on my team last year that made it to the championship and won. He helped build teams. He helped people building teams. He kind of ghosted as well. I mean, he was there for the entire team and really helped us out. So I can vouch for him. He's a great. He's at the very least a great Pokemon player. And as well as he also tagged himself as SCB LOL, who's also a great Pokemon player. Probably the two best Pokemon players in the thing.
Think of being a big sports fan is these two are both really good, what we would call in like football or basketball locker room guys.
Yeah.
They support everyone around. They do really good at building, and they're both really good at battling in their own right.
And Siri's got emotes. That's all you need to make a good team.
Yup, best emotes in FPL.
I got BB-Loom. BB-Loom is always the best of all time, but that's for another discussion. But looking at the rest of the team, we also got like of course Shield Poke. Let me go flip over to the matchups this week. Like, they drafted a lot of names I recognize. This is probably the most names I recognize from any team, I think.
And I know having talked to SCB, that was kind of one of his draft plans coming into it. So he wanted to get a lot of people that he knows, and he knows that he works well together with.
Yeah, I kind of went with the same. Like, when I get to mine, I'll talk about I kind of view it differently. But it's also a fair movement because you have known commodities coming in that can probably win.
And it makes a lot of team synergy. And when you have, Cyber and SCB leading the team, two of the best battlers in this potentially, they want players that they can synergize with, that they know will not be problems and will work with them, and that they just have fun and get along with.
The one random, of course, on the team that for them is Chris, and of course you really want to talk about Chris. I know that.
Yes. So Chris, most of you guys by now probably know the Chris memes and everything. But Chris is a random that SCB picked up near the end of the draft, second to last pick, and he didn't show up into the server at first, and we kept making jokes about it and everything, and then the next day, everyone wakes up, it's like 9 a.m. my time, so 11 Eastern, and Chris shows up in the server after Spatula's messing around, he's like, I'm gonna call him. And so, we're all hyped him up, and he's like, I'm not really that good, and SCB's like, that's fine. We just want fun players. And then Chris goes, but I do play VGC. And everyone goes wild because if you look at this team, we really don't have a VGC presence.
Yeah, right now you got you.
So, yeah. And I'm learning VGC literally this week. So I think in terms of this team's build and talking about randoms that could pop up in this FPL and really make their presence known, I think this is one of the players that if he can really consistently show up in the VGC tier for this team, it makes both him and this team a lot more dangerous.
Most definitely. And the thing is, like, you see how he plays VGC, but it's not even that. This man made top cut at one of his tournaments he went to.
Yeah, he was a top cut in one of his tournaments.
Yes, yeah, so and
I personally have played with him, and I can vouch for the fact that he at least knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's really
Results
solid.
Will speak for themselves, but at least in terms of mindsets, I know for a fact that he knows all the sets and everything that he should do in situations. And especially with this BGC being a 2 out of 3 instead of best of 1, I think he has a really good shot to do really well.
No,
and
definitely.
help shore up his team's biggest weakness.
VGC, I didn't know how VGC was going to be, but VGC is looking really stacked this season, just for teams that people that have them.
Yeah, I thought VGC was going to be a big weakness for a lot of these teams, and there definitely are teams that may struggle in the VGC tier, but surprisingly it seems like most teams did a good job having at least one person who understands the tier well enough to play.
Yeah, and it should be. I think I'm really looking forward to watching VGC games. I think someone most looks forward to like events happening.
And then lastly with this team, before we move on, I think it does really well in those lower tiers in singles, with Little Cup and RU in particular, being two tiers. Little Cup especially, two tiers that this team has top players in the entire FPL to really shore up and potentially get a lot of wins in.
Yeah, and Shieldpoke's a really good player too. I really like Shieldpoke and OU. The
OU roster is really good. It's got two pretty consistent players, and I think in OU, in a draft like this, having consistency in that and making sure you're at minimum going 1-1, but most weeks going 2-0 is huge.
I don't know much about Spatula. I do know he's a cool guy and y'all know him, but like I don't know how good he is or what he's like. He's fluent, like he's really good at, I don't know.
And Spatula, I coming into this did not know Spatula really well either. But I have gotten a chance to watch Spatula play. I've listened to SCB and Cyru talk about him. It seems like he'll be a really good asset in that OU tier for this team.
I think, just looking at the team as a whole, I think this team can definitely make some moves in this season. I'm looking forward to watching my boys Cyru and SCB try to win it. But moving on to
Take this team of personalities and take it on an actual run. This team just reminds me so much of SEV's Team Beer Team, which infamously had so many personalities and players and managed to go 2-5.
yep, that's true. That's one thing I'm worried about. Maybe you're
So
getting hyped up a lot.
I am
but,
worried with potentially being a lot of hype on this team, potentially being a lot of untimed losses, and like that Team Beer Team having several 3 and 4 weeks.
I can see it.
One or two of the games having some bad luck or a bad play here and there.
But I think having that Siru as the person spearheading the whole thing, I think it's gonna be hard to slip up.
Yeah,
Because he's gonna run a tough shit. No pun intended.
Yep.
Moving on to the next team, we got actually a team that's a little bit similar, familiar rather. It's my team, coached by me. I got Hero 2417, not number one, Suave, the Phantom Brick, Yuka, Echo Gaia, and Amir.
So when I look at this team, the first thing I notice is that the really recognizable names, mainly Suave, not number one, and you, of course, are all very accomplished players.
Yeah, we were on the team that won last year.
Have a lot of hype behind them, especially Suave. You know, as the person who has been hyping Suave up for like 1.5 years, and now the entire server's caught on, Suave has a lot of hype behind him and a lot of skill behind him.
Yeah.
It is consistently a threat to win OU1 every week against anyone in this.
Most definitely. Suave is, of course, a great player. I got him for much less than I got him last season, I'll tell you that much. He also had a less point total to play for.
Yeah, I think he came up a lot later in the draft than a lot of people were expecting, so he ended up going a lot lower because some people had already spent a decent amount of points on players that they wanted for their team.
AJ was going to throw 38 on him, though, and I only bid like the 20 something, the high 20s, but he lagged too much in the draft, and I actually got him before he did, so that was really awesome for me.
Yeah, but it was really good luck on your part, really bad luck on AJ's part.
So I don't want to be too biased when I talk about my team, so I kind of want to, I kind of had a thing where I asked a couple people to give me kind of like their thoughts and opinions on me and my team. I don't know, to give them to PK, so PK, if you want to pick out some highlights out of that.
Pull up some of these thoughts.
I haven't heard any of these, so I can't wait to hear these.
From one anonymous submitter, we have a player-by-player analysis of many of these players. So for Boston, he says, pretty good captain, has won before, seems inexperienced in Gen 8, however.
That's true.
Unsure how Boston will perform in the new meta, however knows that Boston has been here, has done really well, and is capable of playing Pokemon. Next says, not number one, Colby, great at being ghosted and ghosting, great pick to... I know, great pick to shore up the team, totally. I know, I laughed so much when I read that one. Suave, good player, whether having ghosting assistance or without ghosting, threat to win, obviously, anytime he loads up. I'm not going to read Bricks.
Why?
Because, no, Bricks will probably go inactive partway through the season.
Hey, hold on. He played 6 games last season. He was hella inactive.
I also played a past FPL with Brick, and he is a really fun player to play with. He is pretty quiet, but when you do rely on him, he is a reliable.
He's been talking a lot, so I'm really excited to have him on the team. But go ahead.
And then the last person that this person knows and talked about is Amir. It says, all right player, will probably have a positive record. And I think it's a really fair way to sum up Amir.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Amir is I've been on a team coached by Amir before, and he's a really, really consistent, really chill dude. Good guy to have around.
He's very positive.
I haven't seen him play any of Gen 8, so it's kind of the same question with Boston. It's how he'll do in the new meta. He's a very positive, very fun player to be around, and I think he ultimately will do pretty well.
Okay. Not bad, not bad.
Alright, and then for second person is from an opposing coach, and he wrote an entire book.
I know who this is.
I'm gonna sum this up pretty quickly. You do know who this is. So for Boston, he says, solid captain, gonna let people play the tiers that they want. Not sure what he's gonna play this time around since there isn't NU, and I haven't seen him ladder at all, but he could probably get used to RU or LC really quickly, a couple ladder games. And then, at the time that this is made, the hero had not joined the server yet.
Nope.
So the only thing that this person says is, I've heard this guy's dead and hasn't joined the team yet. However, since this posting, Hero has in fact shown up, and Boston is aware of Hero.
God bless.
And what tiers he likes to play, how much of a player he is. So luckily we did not have a random show up dead to a team, as far as I know, for any of the teams this season.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty good, because I feel like there's always at least one or two.
Usually, yes.
For Colby, is a pretty solid player. I give him a 60-40 chance to win his matches, assuming he plays OU. Very nice ghosting presence. He'll join call and help you get a thought process. Suave, great start player, makes his opponents afraid, doesn't get ghosted, but still plays great no matter what. Is very helpful at ghosting at times, but sometimes might go for the more flex play. So may not be quite as reliable in a ghosting situation. Which brings up, I think it's really interesting having the Suave Colby combination, because I think that description is actually the opposite for Colby.
Most definitely.
In that I think Colby is an extremely good ghoster and extremely good at getting people to think about their plays through his ghosting. Whereas Suave's kind of the opposite. Suave will say the high level quote play that, you know, if you're playing against big tour players or super high ladder games, it's almost always the play. But against some of the people in this tour, it might be a little too risky at times, depending who you're against. Moving on, if Brick, it's heard he's solid at lower tiers. I know he's decent at Draft League from what I've seen, but hasn't really seen a ton of Brick. Doesn't know a ton about him.
Yeah.
We have Yuka, who is a nice pick. Heard he's a decent VGC player, which is always nice to have on this team. Just doesn't really have another VGC presence on it. And a lot of teams in this meta have kind of really solid VGC players. But if Yuka is as good as Boston has hyped Yuka to be a VGC, I think that gives Yuka a very good chance to win a lot of VGC games. Echo Gaia, honestly, never heard of him, but hope he does well. And then Amir, pretty alright player, great personality, a lot like Colby in the sense that he has an above average chance to win most games and is very good to be around.
So, yeah.
He breaks down all the tiers. I'm not going to go through that because I've already gone through the players. It's roughly the same stuff. And he gave a rating. His rating is 3 out of 5 team, can be a 4 out of 5 depending how active everyone ends up being and how the random players end up performing.
That is a very fair assessment. Because my team, like, I kind of went sort of how I went last season, where I drafted some known names and I drafted a lot of, because I do my research when I draft. And I kind of looked at these players and I looked at some of their ladder stats, their replays, such as that.
And I know when you were drafting, you kind of got a little behind the ball on your plan early on in the draft, but I think you managed to recover pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't realize Lugia was taken.
Roster.
Go ahead.
Yep. I know you were targeting Lugia. I know Ilpoke was someone that you really wanted to have on your team, and those were 2 picks that were taken within the first 10 people, I want to say.
Yeah, I let Shilpo go. I actually nommed him first, but I let Shilpo go. He went for 20k, and I was like, I think I can do better. Use that money somewhere else.
SCB went crackhead and immediately threw 20k on him, and no one touched him the entire rest of that draft.
I want a Lugia. I want a Chuckster. I didn't realize Lugia was gone after I bid up Chuckster. And like, wait, Lugia's gone too. So I lost 2 of my players. I didn't, because I was distracted when Lugia got drafted. So I had to switch courses, and I went all in on Suave. Like, I needed Suave at that moment, so that's why I got Suave. But I'm happy to get him. He's a great player.
Yep, and I think being able to get Suave was really key for this roster as a start, because it kind of got your draft in a direction once we got to that point.
And then, not to mention, like, after retaining, like, Suave, of course, Suave and not number 1 are on my team last year, and they were my OU 1 and OU 2 picks. Or they both played OU the entire time most of the time. And they anchored her down. We had the best OU record by far in the league. We went 11-3. So like returning that experience from last season is awesome. I love it.
And I think that comes back to what I was saying about the OU tier and how consistency is really huge in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these two players are two extremely consistent OU players. And that's going to help contribute really to being potentially a dominant team in the OU tier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. For the other players, I have, of course, I think I almost agree with everything they said. If the Hero, Yuka, and Echo Guy turn out to be pretty good, our team could be easily top 3.
Yep, and in my power rankings, the exact way that I described your team was really top-heavy presence.
Mm-hmm.
If low known players or players that maybe haven't been known to be super dominant do extremely well, this team is just as good as any other team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Hero actually does play Uber, so I'm going to put him in Ubers going forward, trying to see how good he is in it. Because I think Ubers is one that most teams will have struggle with because no one plays a tier of only 2 Pokemon in it.
Yeah, I think that the problem with Ubers for a lot of people is because it's kind of focused on just four different Pokemon and, you know, whatever quote meta Pokemon people bring in every day to kind of change it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it relatively unappealing to a lot of players. And so I think that's going to be a tier that a lot of teams can get headway in going through the season if they have a really solid Ubers player.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like we went last year when we had Fee and Shieldpoke kind of do Ubers, and we really ran up that tier.
Yep.
Yuka is actually really good. He said he can play OU and VGC, and he actually does good with competitions. I think he went 6-3 in the last one, so he's gonna probably play VGC a good bit. I'm probably gonna main LC, I think. So yep. I like my team. I like my layout. Once again, I got to see how my players are playing. Echo Guy has not talked that much thus far, but I think he's pretty good. Hero seems like he knows his stuff. He really enjoys playing Mons. And of course, Yuka. He also is pretty experienced in VGC and is very active in the server.
This is one of those teams that come like week 3, week 4 of the season will really kind of know a lot more about where they're going to stand among the other teams.
Definitely, I think
we'll have more of those questions answered about the middle tiers, about the random people who aren't Suave, Colby, Boston, and how they're going to perform.
I completely agree. Now, moving on to the next team, we got Joshua and the BDC Kings. Another buddy of mine. Why is he 314? Is that actually in his name?
Yeah, I think it's actually part of his name.
I've never noticed.
Well, I'm gonna look at this.
Anyway, Ajag is his co-captain. He has
it's his Discord number. I don't know why it's attached. His Discord name is Joshua, but then the number that's assigned to all the names is 314.
Good job, Mort. Now, we got Ajag at co-captain. We got Wargarumon 2005. Let me just do math real fast. So what is he, 15, 14?
Yeah, so he's 15.
Mm-hmm. Spasme, Champloo, Chuckster, Dennis the Menace, and Frenzy. So, this team is actually one of my... I just think this team is funny to me.
This team is like a lot of people that I know, and a lot of people that I've either done stuff like FPLs or things with, or am in servers with and have talked to at various things, and it's just kind of a really funny but effective combination of people.
The team is literally like full, like three quarters memes. Like Joshua, of course, Piplup's leader. Ajag is Ajag. It's Ajag. Champloo went 0-6 like 2 FPLs ago, and actually went even.
That was the Team Beer FPL.
Bro, Champloo was so fun.
That was the 2-5 Team Beer team that I was talking about earlier.
I love Champloo, but he's not good.
SCB bought Champloo for like 50,000 points.
No way. He went 0-6.
I don't remember what the actual bid was, but Champloo was easily the highest paid player on that team, and he went 0-6 in OU, and that was the biggest crux of that Team Beer season.
At least last year someone went 0-7, so he's not alone. Anyway, Champloo is there. You got Dennis the Menace, who went 0-5 last season. He has historically not done well at FPLs. I think he's a good player. He's knowledgeable, I think. It just, he does not win.
I think this team is full of a lot of really solid players.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm worried that this team, of any of the teams, I've talked about Team Beer a lot, but I'm worried that this team may be the one that suffers the most from that kind of Team Beer syndrome, where they have a lot of players who can win any weeks, but they kind of alternate who loses and who wins each week, and end up with a lot of 4-3 and 3-4 weeks.
That's definitely one thing. I think it's going to be a really close weeks, and a lot of times it's just going to be like flip off. They're going to lose to a team you never expect them to lose to. They're going to lose to like the team that's last. And it's like, how do they do this?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think that one thing that does help them a lot with that is Frenzy. And I don't know how much people know about Frenzy in the Joy-Cord community, but Frenzy is probably, in this tournament, the most well-known VGC player in terms of skill. I don't want to say he's the best because almost everyone else playing in VGC, except for Beth, I've never watched play the tier pretty much.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say he's the best, but in terms of knowing which teams have a good VGC presence, Frenzy is the one player that I can look at and be like, this team has a VGC player that's going to do really well.
Now, here's another thing about Frenzy, though, is historically, he has just disappeared in mid-season, like gone.
Yep, and that's going to be the one thing, even if he does really well early on in that VGC tour, if he's not around to play in that, especially mid-season, maybe they're struggling, maybe they're on a hot streak, doesn't really matter. That's going to hurt this team a lot.
Definitely. Last season, he was drafted for like a crazy amount, and he only played 3 games, and he had to like get subbed out 3 times.
Yeah.
So, and he only went 1-2 last season. That's a whole another thing. He's a good player though, definitely. He was also on my he was actually on my FPL draft league team, but he did nothing the entire time. So
he very much seems like a player who fits more into this style of FPL rather than draft.
Yeah, but even then, like once again, he did not do much in that FPL. Now, he does have Josh and Ajag as captains. I think that will motivate him to come out and play more, but we still have to wait and see if that actually comes to fruition.
And I also think Josh and Ajag, just in general, captains are very kind of nattish, where if he does start to drift off a little bit, they're the types of people that will nag him until he eventually comes back. So I do think that
Ajag will be adding him like 20 times a minute.
Yep. I do think in terms of captains, this is a really good fit to keeping Frenzy in the tour and hopefully on his toes, ready to win for this team. The other thing on this team I'm really interested in, so you mentioned him already, is Dennis and how Dennis is going to play. Because I actually feel like this might be the year that Dennis kind of bounces back.
I hope so. I need to see that man win.
Yeah, right? That he is really solid at Mons. And I think if he does have that bounce back, this team is going to do really well. And potentially be one of the top teams going into playoffs.
But there is one thing to worry about. This season, they're allowing timer to be turned on. And that's his worst enemy of all time.
Yep.
Dennis to minutes versus a timer is the worst thing ever.
Yep. And because of that timer, it's really hard to say how Dennis is going to perform. But if they can keep Frenzy playing the whole tour, or at least most of the tour, and shore up their VGC, and if Dennis really truly has a bounce back year and goes like, even if it's just like 4-3 or 5-2, I think that's enough to help this team to really get into that playoff race.
And still, Chuckster is good, Josh is good, Ajag is good. I don't know much about Spazime, so I have hopes for this team. But it's really something we're interested to see how it turns out. Let's go ahead and move on to the fifth team, actually. Phantos and the Elstealth Cavaliers. Phantos is the captain last season as well, on the same team name. His co-captain was Fancourt, which, by the way, I just want to mention, if you see a co-captain, I mentioned co-captain, those are the people that drafted for the captain during the draft. So, just to note that. Fancourt is the co-captain, Tutor, Beth, Yoshi, Dr. Drax, Nick Nom, Static, Brendan, Shiny Typhoon, and Nora.
So the first thing when I look at this team personally is those two at the bottom, Brendan and Nora, are both names that I've seen, but I've never watched play Pokemon. I don't know if they've been in past FPLs. I kind of took a year break off of FPLs, so I haven't seen a lot of the recent ones.
I'm pretty sure Brendan played in both past FPLs. He's not active in the server at all, but he always comes out for FPLs, and he does pretty average. So it's not. He's definitely a decent pick. He's won some games, so that's all you really need to have is to win games, of course.
Yep.
Nora's kind of like Daniel I mentioned earlier, where he's been. I see this person in the server a lot, but I don't know how to play Mons.
Yep, and that's kind of a similar thing with Nick Nom, aka Travis, might be what a lot of people know him by. I've seen Travis play a decent amount, but I've never seen Travis play in a tournament like this.
He
So I'm
played.
curious to see how Travis will do. For me personally, I'm sure he's played past tours, but I
Yeah,
haven't seen him personally. I'm
he's
curious to
he's
see how Travis will do.
he's pretty all right. Not a high ceiling player, but definitely a player that can win you some games. Dr. Drax, Deuter Drax. I spelled that wrong. Good job, Deuter. Dr. Drax, who went 6-1 last season, had an excellent FPL.
And Drax is one of those guys, in my opinion, kind of one of those locker room guys, going to do really well and kind of really support his team. Maybe not as much as some of the other people we've noticed up front.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is one of those guys, just really good presence to have around. He's a really helpful player to have there, and he will perform in a lot of his games.
He wasn't high on that. He isn't that high on himself as a player, but of course he went 6-1 last season. I think he's very solid. He's very knowledgeable. I think he'll get you a good amount of wins. It's probably him and Fincourt. I would argue is probably the best player on his team. Fincourt, of course, he was a captain last year. His team actually made third in FPL, so he had a pretty good season as well. Phantos, of course, went fifth.
Phantos, the captain, is also a really solid player.
Yep.
I think he's a player that doesn't have a ton of weaknesses. I'm just not sure if he really hits that top tier enough in a lot of games, especially if he's going to be matching up against really good players.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Phantos and Fincourt is both players that, or air quotes in case if you don't remember. Or PK, did you ever hear about what happened last year's FPL and finals, or not finals, playoffs?
Not.
Okay,
I did not.
This is a fun little story moment from last FPL. If you weren't here or just want to remember the story, we made it into play. We had 14 pick in the playoffs. We had me, our team, Atrix, Fincourt, and Amir's team, Dead by Dracos. Amir's team, which is the 4 seed, actually beat the number 1 seed Atrix, and we beat Fincourt to make it the final. So it's gonna be me versus Amir's team. But then I was doing one of his videos, and I was looking at some math, and I realized, wait a second, Phantos had a better record than Amir. So Phantos should have been the 4th seed and not Amir. And this is after Atrix already lost to Amir. So this got a whole mess of just an entire mess where they actually had Phantos play Amir as like a, I don't even know what game, to make it into finals.
Not really a play-in, but
yeah. So technically,
just like a
yeah. And Amir actually ended up winning. We played Amir anyway in finals and won. But just so Phantos is technically supposed to be was in playoffs last year in FPL along with Fincourt. So both FPL playoff experience. Like you said, I like this. There's things I like this team. Beth is a really good VGC player, as he pointed out.
Yep, Static is a person that not a lot of people in the server know, but he's a good friend of a couple of us. SCB, Cyrus both know him pretty well. I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last few weeks. He's a very good OU player, probably at the level of almost any other OU player in this server. And I think he will do really well and kind of make a little bit more of a name for himself among everyone else among the server that doesn't necessarily know him at this point. And Yoshi, if anyone remembers Yoshi, I don't know at what point Yoshi left the server between when I last was part of the server and when I came back.
Yoshi just disappears and shows up out of nowhere. I don't know how he does. He just it's a radar. Like FPL time, come back.
Well, this time it was because me and Pim contacted Yoshi. And
really?
We're like, hey, it's FPL time, you should come in. And then the Pirates proceeded to not save enough money to draft Yoshi.
Go.
So Yoshi ended up going to the S Cavaliers. However, Yoshi is a really solid player all around. I think he does a lot better in lower tiers like RU than he necessarily does in OU, but he can play pretty much any tier at a pretty high level.
I have faith in Yoshi and LC this season. I think it's what he's going to play. Yoshi does do at times just kind of like things is like, is this guy really that good? Like, he just, or like, fire blasting a Rhydon.
Yeah, Yoshi is very notorious for going for stunt plays that sometimes end up costing him games that he should have won.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of the dangers that you just get with drafting a player like Yoshi, who
Yeah, Yoshi also
can
took me
win.
last season, so you know what? I can't talk much.
He can beat almost anyone in almost any tier.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of those high risk, high reward players, and I actually expect him to do really well for the SCAVs this year.
So I look at this team. I think there's not really a too great, large of a high level player they have, but they have a really solid cast of characters. I think.
Yep, I think this is a really balanced team. I really want to see how this team will perform across the board against a lot of the quote high level teams that we see in here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this team should be able to field a good player in every tier every week. And I think just being able to know that there's a player capable of winning in every tier is a really valuable asset.
I agree. Okay, let's move on to the next team we got. We got the Uwoos, captained by Eza with her co-captain Trevor, as well as Yeezy, S-Dace, Snap, Dovovovovovovo, Hot Honcho, Lily, and Atrix MJ. So, this team is actually, I think the pairing of Eza and Atrix is kind of funny, just because who they are.
This team, funny enough to me, is chock full of players that did really well last FPL in the draft league.
Mm-hmm. Team Uwoo, so it's the same team.
Yeah, so there's people from Team Uwoos, there's people from the Owos, well, Lily, and
Lily, Nap, Eza, Trevor.
There's Davavo and Atrix from Base Lords who got second.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this team has a lot of players that have proven themselves to be able to play, but I also think that a lot of these players, from what I've seen of them, are really good at draft league, but not necessarily as well rounded in this style.
I can see it.
FPL.
I can definitely see it.
Yeah, man, I actually am picking this team to do pretty well this season, but I'm curious to see how they'll perform in the FPL style, which consists of building for a lot more threats, in my opinion, for the teams that you'll be making. And I do think this is a team that's going to be building a lot of their teams. It does feature a lot of builders on it.
I can see that. I think I'm really torn on this team because I don't know exactly. Like, I know Lily is a good player. Lily's a good player. Other than that, like, Atri's a good player. But the rest of them are like Honcho and Devovo did average last FPL. Nap, I think he would probably say it's pretty average. Yeezy, pretty average. S-Dace, I don't know anything how he plays Pokemon. I do know that he did go for 1K, so shout out to him.
And I do think that that's one of the big questions with this team is where do they pick up their 4 wins in a week?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very high on Lily and Eza as players, and I think they play a lot of tiers and are experienced in a lot of different metas.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Atrix plays a ton of OU and has played OU Gen a lot, and I think that's going to be really helpful, as I think there's a lot of players, especially at this point in FPL, that maybe haven't played Gen 8 as much as Atrix has.
Yeah, I think Atrix is a very solid
but I'm worried that this team needs those 3 to win every week to win the league.
Yeah, I just don't.
As much as that is possible, it's very difficult to have cornerstone players like that win every single week.
I completely agree. That's the one thing I'm worried about, is trying to get enough wins every single week. Now, I'm sure they're gonna have a few weeks where they win a lot of games, but like most of the time, I think they're just gonna be close. It's gonna get cutting close.
I think they're gonna have a lot of 4 and 3 and 3 and 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest question mark, in my opinion, when I look at this, we've been talking about VGC players a lot, and I think this team, from what I know of the VGC players in the server, has the weakest VGC roster.
Mm-hmm.
Sedace has said that he plays VGC some, but I just haven't seen it yet. And a lot of the rest of the server, I've seen a lot more VGC out of them.
Yeah, I don't know. None of them else play VGC. So.
Yeah, So I'm not sure how the VGC tier is going to go for them.
I can see that. So I do think this is a potential team that can move up or down the rankings quite a bit depending on how the season goes.
Team, in my opinion, could end up anywhere on the board. They could end the regular season at the 1 seed, or they could be at the 8 seed. It's really hard to say.
So we'll definitely wait and see where they are in a few weeks, and we'll then once they get like week 3, we'll know what they are probably. Moving on to the next to last team, we got the Slackings and Vespiquins. Neat.
I don't really get the name, but
it's Kings and Queens, but like, yeah, why not? Whatever.
No comment.
You got Electric. It's captained by Electric. Then you have Galapagos or Galapagoat, Thomas, Gage, Mort, Phoenix Fire, Kidus Rocks, Smiley 98, and Dark Dreamer Luna.
So this team, when I look at it, is just such a funny collection of individuals, in my opinion. And even more so than the Joshua team we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Like, a lot of these players are very distinct personalities that are really kind of funny to see playing together.
For real. Like, I think Electric just, like, was looking and thinking, okay, I kind of know that name, I'm going to draft him. Oh, I think I know that name too, I'm going to draft him. And just a collection of people is great. They're probably their best player is Mort, I would say.
Yeah, it's really hard on this team to truly pick out a best player.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Mort and his play style, especially in this style of FPL, should make him perform pretty well for this team. And I think he should be someone who kind of grounds this team, wins a lot of games in the week to help them particularly go there.
Do you know if they let Sleepy? Do you know if they let Sleepy back on the team?
I believe Sleepy dropped out.
He's not.
There was a bunch of conversation about that, and I think the ultimate decision was Sleepy did not want to continue with the tour.
All right, fair enough. So now that loses him a VGC player at the very least if he was going to play that.
Yeah, VGC. I know he liked to play OU, and this team, in my opinion, it has a lot of people who can play OU, but I think having had a second person who's comfortable in OU would have really helped.
Yeah. I mean, Gage, see, the thing is, I like Gage, but Gage is more of an OU2 player than an OU1, in my opinion.
Yep,
if you're going to put him there.
If Gage is put into that OU1 slot, it might be a little difficult in a lot of weeks for him.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of Gage, a lot of these players I just see as better in other tiers. And I think having potentially struggles in OU is going to hurt this team a lot.
I agree. Now, of course, there are some unknowns. I don't know much about Smiley. We don't know anything about Thomas. They could be really good at their tiers or whatever they're playing.
Yep, I know Galapagos plays UU.
Man, I love Galapagos too.
RU, and I don't know too much about him, but I know he's solid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with this team. It has a lot of solid players, kind of similar to the last team, but even
worse. It's more polarized.
On the last team, I felt like there were a couple that I could pinpoint as threats in a lot of weeks, and this team, it just feels like it's a really safe roster that's probably going to lose a lot of 1-0 and 2-0 games.
Yeah, and I think
throughout the week.
In the end, they're not going to win as many games as the others. They're going to win a few. There could be weeks because, like I said, I like Mort, I like Gage. Galapagos is cool. You know, he went 1-6 last season because he got hacks every single week.
As much as we like to meme Luna and give Luna a hard time, Luna is not a bad player.
Luna's
kind of similar. Luna's kind of similar to Yoshi, in the sense that Luna's kind of a high risk, high reward player.
I can see it. Luna's improved a lot.
Yeah.
But that's about all I can say for that team. It's interesting to see. It's pretty average.
Yeah, it's an interesting collection. Got a lot of okay players. I'm a little worried that not having a top level presence is really going to hurt this team, though.
Man, I'm so mad Finn put them at 4 and my team at 5. Anyway, that's beside the point. Let's move on to the last team. We got the South Bend Blazekins, coached by Blaze114. Is that how you pronounce that? Blazik?
I just always call him Blaze. I think it's Blazik14.
It's like 114 people like that, like lead speech. I don't know. Anyway, Blaze. His players are Sunpot, Assessed Threat, Water Sinks, Bernie, Gravel Mouse, God is Watching, Eric Hero, Orthodox Ninja, and Coolio1223. Now, Um, this team is kind of similar to the last one, but I think the cast of characters are all okay.
So there's a lot of quiet people on this team, in my opinion, that I haven't seen a lot of play. The ones I have seen play are just kind of really under the radar guys.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I think the biggest issue that I have when I look at this team is I don't see against all the OU threats throughout this tournament. I think there's not even at the level of Gage. I don't know if there's a true OU threat in this
yeah,
roster
I
off the
think
top of my head.
in my
There's a lot
personal
of players
opinion,
that are okay at OU,
my
but no one who I think can compete with a lot of the
yeah.
better OU players throughout this.
Let's go and look at the team. My opinion, the best player on this team is either Bernie or Eric Hero. In my just honest opinion, where are you?
And what's nice about Eric
Yeah.
Hero is that he does have a decent amount of VGC experience,
Mm-hmm.
playing in that VGC tier a lot for this team. And I think he should be able to do really well in that tier. I think that'll help this team potentially make up for the fact that the OU might be a little bit weaker for them.
Yeah, I see this team struggling a lot though. I just don't think they have enough star power to push them through. ATT is there.
Yeah,
ATT has struggled, and he struggled in last FPL. I know he's a good player. I've seen him play. He knows his things. But
I just I look at this team and I find it hard to see where they're getting their 4 wins for the week.
mm-hmm.
And so I think there are players on this team that can win, but I think it's going to be really hard to put that all together in 1 week. You know, Gravel Mouse, everyone knows Gravel Mouse. He's
Mm-hmm.
not a bad player, and he's played a lot of various tiers, but I also don't necessarily know if he's a good player from everything I've seen.
Yeah, and Gravel's a meme, but as a
Yeah,
player,
exactly.
I mean, he I seen him play. He already played this week, so I kind of have a feeling a little bit of him. He is not the best player, but I think he'll probably go. I'm gonna give him like a two and. I'm gonna say he goes like 2 and 4. I think
Yeah,
2 and 3, two and four.
I think he's capable. I
Mm-hmm.
think he might be one of those players that if this team's going to do really well, he needs to do really well. And obviously, he already had a rough week 1, but that's fine. That's just one game.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he can shore it up for this team in the rest of the weeks, he can kind of help this team. But it's just really hard to see this team winning 4 games in a week out
Yeah,
of 7.
like I said, I like the cast of characters in this team. A lot of the like these players like Coolio, Bernie, Water Things, they're all good enough. I think. I just don't see them winning. They're gonna win a couple weeks, and they're not gonna win, but they're not gonna win enough. You know.
I think the other interesting thing about this, and we haven't talked too much about the captains on most of these teams, but Blaze being a first-time captain and really seeing how he deals with setting rosters, getting his team motivated,
That is very true.
and all of that, I think is going to be really big for this team.
Mm-hmm.
With all of those personalities that can do really well, but maybe don't always do. So I think this will be a real test for Blaze in his first FPL as a captain.
I definitely agree. So, well, with that, we actually went through the entire the entire group of teams. Now, if we're gonna go and give like a power ranking, like our personal feelings of how it's gonna shake out or what the best teams are. Do you want to go ahead and give yours first?
Yep. So at number 1 in my power rankings, I have the Death Pirates. I just think that top to bottom, this team has dangerous players at every single one that's been drafted to their roster,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that having personalities like Cyru and SEB is going to kind of help those teams those players be consistent week to week. I just think this is a really hard team to get wins against. Number 2, I have the BBC Kings. Kind of a similar reason, but I think everyone across the board is pretty good. Like I said, I'm expecting Dennis to kind of have a bounce back year this year. Champ Blue, as much as we like to joke about the 0-6 season, he is a really solid player, and I think he will do well enough for this team. And I think this team is really balanced across the board and should be able to consistently get wins. Number 3, I have the Blooms by Boston. I think that the top 3 players in this are all really good and should be able to win a majority of their games. And then I think the kind of next tier of players are all very capable players that should be able to win at least half their games. I think having Yuka potentially be really good in the LC and VGC tiers for them is kind of going to be what drives them over the hump and turns them from a fringe playoff team into a team that makes it potentially pretty easily in the last week. At number 4, I have Ezra's Uwus. I just really think that all these players mesh really well together. This is kind of a culture pick, but I think that everyone on this team is going to get along and they're going to really support each other. I think that Ezza and Lily are both really good builders and are going to be able to help support their teams to properly use the teams that they're going to be using over this tournament. And I think they'll end up with a record that is good enough to just sneak them into the playoffs. Number 5, I have the S-Cavs. I'm a real big fan of Static in OU, and I think he's going to do really well for them in OU. And I think that despite all the jokes that people make about Beth in Friendship, she is a really, really good player in VGC. And I think those two will be able to consistently pick up wins. And then among the other players, Phantos, Finn, Drax, Yoshi, I think they should be able to pick up wins a majority of the time. Number 6, I have Savage and the Stonejourners. I really love the Lugia pick, and I think Lugia will be a really good presence on this team. I'm just not sure how the rest of the team is going to mesh. I think that they will do well, but probably have a lot of close losses over the course of the season. Number 7, I have the Slackings of Vespiquins. Like we said already, this team has a lot of personalities that are really solid, but I'm not sure if they have people that can consistently win for them every week. And I think that's going to really hurt not having someone who essentially puts you up 1-0 every week, at least from a mental standpoint. And lastly, Blaze, kind of the same thing as the last one. I think that there are solid players on here, but I think a lot of these players are going to really struggle against top tier competition, and it's going to be really hard to put wins together week to week for this team.
All right, very fair. I'm gonna go do mine. I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna go backwards. Sorry, from 8 go to 1. I'm gonna go ahead and say this to you, PK. After I convinced you to go ahead and switch two of your picks, I changed my mind. So I'm sorry. Anyway,
Okay.
number 8 is our list is pretty similar. Number 8 is Blaze for the South Bend Blazikins. I don't think they have enough number 1s and number 2s and spots to win. I think they're a decent cast of characters, but do not have a anchoring point to carry them throughout the season. At number 7, I have the Slackings and Vespiquins, captained by Electric. I do like Morton Gage. I do not think Gage is a good OU1, and I think that the rest of the players are unknowns or not going to win you enough games consistently to make it into have a good winning record. Number 6, I have the Uwus, captained by Eza. I do like this team. I think it can definitely move up or down depending on how they mesh and how well the players will, like Devovo and Honcho, pick it up and win. But as is, I think they can also lose a decent amount, even their star players, and that will hurt them in the end and may not get them to the playoffs. For this 15, I have Savage and the Stonehenge Stonejourners. I really like Lugia and the rest of their picks. I think they are decently pretty solid all around. I think they can definitely make a push and try to make playoffs. I just think they'll make it just slightly short. For the 4th spot, I have Phantos. I do like Dr. Drax and Finkler as their anchor points, as well as the supporting cast being solid enough in the tiers they play. I think they would have a pretty decent season and be definitely make it into playoffs. 3rd place, I have the BBC Kings, captained by Joshua. I really do think this team is very interesting. I think they have a good cast of characters. I think with Joshua and AJ as supporting them, I think they will have much better seasons than they may have in the past, such as Champloo, Dennis, and Frenzy. And Chuckster, of course, is very solid in his own right. 2nd, I have the BB Loons, captained by myself. I think that we have one of the strongest OU cores in the entire league, as well as solid players in Phantom Brick and Amir. I do have high hopes in the unknowns, the randoms, I guess, in Yuka, Hero, and the Echo Gaia. I think our team rides highly on those players, and I do have faith in them. I think we will take the top number 2 spot. But definitely, by far, the number 1 team is Siru and the Team Death Soul Pirates, or however you pronounce that. Siru is one of the best players in the entire league by far in his own right, as well as having SCB LOL, a good friend, and they work really well together, as well as being a good player in general. They have great players in their respective tiers, and Chris is a great player apparently, and I'm really looking forward to them playing. I think they by far have the best star talent in the entire league. So that is my power rankings. So now I know you kind of want to go through like a few other things like X factors and maybe things you're looking forward to looking during the season FPL.
Yep. So I'm gonna go by teams how we did it earlier.
Okay.
So for the Stonejourners first, I think their biggest X factor is going to be how Savage plays. I think that to a lot of us, Savage is kind of an unknown, but if he is really good at any tier, whatever tier he wants to play, I think he can really help that team. I just think it's one of those things where a lot of times on these FPL teams, you want to have a captain who's really solid and plays really well week to week. And I think that's one of the biggest question marks for me with this team. For Team Pirate Death Soul, I think the biggest X factor is going to be how they do in VGC, which is a tier that outside of Chris, no one else in the team really knows a thing about VGC. And so a lot of that does ride on Chris, and then I'm learning VGC. But I think that's a tier that, if they can get that to a 500 tier, is going to make this team extremely dangerous. For the Blooms, I think a very similar X factor is going to be how Uka plays in VGC. For the same reason, a lot of these players on this team don't have VGC experience, don't know a lot about it. And I think if they can get a consistent presence in VGC, that's going to be the thing that really gets them into that top tier of teams. For the BBC Kings, I think the biggest X factor is going to be Dennis the Menace, and whether he can truly have that bounce back tour that I'm expecting out of him. If he can, that makes this team potentially just as good as the Death Pirates, in my opinion. For the S Cavaliers, the biggest X factor, in my opinion, is going to be the OU2 and UU tiers, respectively, and how they do with those tiers. Because I think that a lot of the players on this team are kind of 50-50 players. They could win or they could lose in any week. And I think if they can get a consistent OU2 and or a consistent UU presence, that's going to really help this team cement being a playoff presence. For the UWUs, I think the biggest X factor is going to be the LC tier and the VGC tier. Now, what's funny about this is the LC tier for the UWUs should actually be a really strong tier for them. But I think that's a tier that, for this team to succeed, they need to win it virtually every week. And then secondly, with the VGC tier, I think that if Stace is actually as good at VGC as he says he is, that can really help this team be consistent, as it doesn't really have a top OU2 player to help out in that OU tier, in my opinion. For the Slackings and Vespa Queens, my biggest X factors are going to be the play of Kidus Brox and Mortagon, both being two players that are capable of playing up to most of the players in this tier. I think they're going to really have to play up to the potential that they have in order to help this team potentially make a playoff push. And then lastly, Blazikins, the biggest X factor for them, in my opinion, is going to be how they do in the OU tier in establishing a consistent OU1 and OU2 presence to at least have a solid chance of winning one of those two games every week.
All right, some good stuff. Now, at this point, is there anything else you want to say about this FPL or anything in that regard?
No, I think that about sums up all my thoughts. I think regurgitated a lot of the same things over this entirety of this. I think this is going to be a really fun season, and I think a lot of these teams are constructed really well and with really fun personalities among all of them. Okay. And I would not be surprised if come like week 4 and week 5, every team is pretty competitive, depending on how everything plays out for the teams.
All right. You said you see. Are you going to pick Syria to win it all? In your opinion?
I'm definitely picking Team Death Pirate Soul to take it all. I'm on that team. I think that every player on the team is phenomenal in their respective tiers. I think it's just picking up 1 or 2 wins versus this team is really hard, let alone picking up 4 to win the week.
Mm-hmm. And I completely agree. I think they're definitely the favorites to win. Now, with that being said, thank you all for watching this long power rankings overview of FPL. I'm really looking forward to this season. You shall see me making more FPL content throughout the year, or rather, just a few couple months it's active. So
Probably
if
see
you
me
would,
around every so often.
yeah, PK will be here. I also have other guests to show up and talk about things. Of course, I'll keep redoing the recaps. I may do other FPL related stuff just because I really enjoy this tournament, as well as just whatever. We'll see how it goes down. So if you're looking forward to that, please subscribe so you can keep watching. Follow, like, whatever you want to do. Don't follow. There's nothing to follow. Just subscribe and such. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in a future FPL video. Goodbye.
See ya.